Hello and welcome, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you the top 10 most brilliant Ark tames. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. So in at number 10 I've decided to put the Mantis, and I really do love this as a creature. This is just a go-to one for me when I think of gathering, and for its insane ability, which everyone knows really that no other Ark creature has apart from the Mantis. I really think it is brilliant. It's innovative in its design. It has been in the game for absolutely ages. It's sort of insane that no one really talks about this creature more, as I find this is a really useful and effective one. I love this just as a general creature, and I love all of its abilities. Obviously its main one being the fact that it can just wield melee weapons. I'm pretty sure that's really its only one, so I don't know why I was going for plurals there, but you know, hey ho, we'll go along with it, shall we? Yes, that is just an ability which you don't see in other creatures, and it makes it a very versatile killing creature and also a gathering mount too, and they're both very nice things to have, especially within the same creature. That is especially nice of them to have, because you know, it just adds to the sort of atmosphere and ambience of the creature and just makes them even more brilliant. Next up, I've decided to put the Argentavis, as I really just love this as a flying creature, and it has done a heck of a lot for me when it comes to just my Ark playing in general. It's actually sort of insane what I've managed to get out of the RG. It is one of those creatures where I'm like, if this was not in the game, I do not know where I would be right now. It is just done so much for me as a flying mount, as a resource to repair my armor, as a resource to pick up other creatures and do loads of farming with them, as a resource, as a sort of travel mount to get to caves and whatnot, and also to travel my baryonyx around everywhere, and also just to be such a great creature that can fly over long distances and carry metal whenever I need it to. The RG has just always been there for me, and it is just so well designed that this really is one of those creatures where I have to include it in the brilliant Ark tames list. It's always been there. We all know and love this creature, and it is just truly an effective one. But is it as effective as the next creature on the list? Now, the Crystal Wyvern is just a really versatile flyer in my opinion. It's everything that the Wyvern stands for and is, but with a much easier taming method, and I think with better elemental abilities. Whether or not you think the Argentavis is better than this, that all comes down to your own personal opinion, but just considering how easy this thing is to tame and the insane versatility you get with this creature, I do simply have to put it higher. My personal favourite is the Blood Crystal Wyvern, by the way. Just love that elemental ability that it has. Comment down below your favourite Crystal Wyvern if you do have one. If not, I strongly recommend you go try one. They are on the top 10 most brilliant Ark creatures according to me, after all. But you know, form your own opinions. You're allowed to disagree with this list as always. You can comment down below if you feel like I haven't done a good job with this one, but I just think it's the Wyvern but better really. Yes, you need to be level 60 and you need to knock out a Wyvern to get the Primal Crystal, but it's a passive tame, and on top of that they have the hydration buff too. If you want to stick those wings in the water a little bit, then you might be able to manage to get that hydration buff on you and do even more damage in the skies. Sorry, my hiccups have been a bit of a pain at the moment. In number 7, I've decided to put the Reaper, as this is just such a good element of game design. It really does deserve to be on the list, doesn't it? When thinking about this creature, I always think of the ambience and the atmosphere that it has on a map like Aberration. I always tend to pronounce that wrong. I'm slowly getting better at this. I will fully get it right at some point. But yes, it is just so well built into its map, and it is just so versatile in its abilities too. It really is just a great one to have. On top of that, its taming method is one of the coolest in the game. You have to get this Reaper Queen down to less than 1,000 health, and then after that it will impregnate you, and you need to gather as much XP as possible to make sure that thing is going to be a good strong baby, obviously getting that 100% effectiveness, which, you know, if you're going through all the effort, you probably should be attaining, unless your rates are absurdly high and you don't have the time to do it. Then it's a little bit of a cop-out really, in my opinion, but you know, you're allowed to use your own rates. I tend to be maybe 2.5x at most, like just kind of default single player settings. I don't really digress from the mean too much. Also, this creature is just like peak Ark Xenomorph moment, and is there really something that's cooler than that? The Shadowmane is one of those tames where you need to include it on a brilliant Ark tames list, at least from my perspective, this being a highlight of any Gen 2 player's life, and just actually now my Ark playing life. And before you comment down below about all of these creatures, like basically all of them not being an ASA, the Mantis and the IGR, the Reaper and the Crystal Wyvern aren't, I don't really care too much. Yes, ASC may be discontinued, but it still has a very active player base, and it's pretty much still split half and half down the middle, and I still definitely spent a lot of my time on ASE because all the content's there, and personally I just prefer it as a game. But I'm sure when all the content's out on ASA I might make the switch, and also if I can afford to not have my room being like 10 million degrees whenever I start running the game, because it is so damn demanding. Not to say Ark isn't as well, but it is significantly less demanding. If someone says, well, you do it for the looks, I play a game because I enjoy said game. Like, you could say Crisis doesn't really look too great anymore, but it's still a great game. You're still going to play it. You might want to play the remastered one though, because the performance is actually better for once. In at number 5, coming away from the Crisis conversation, that was a little bit of a very big digression from the mean, you could say, we're going to talk about the Bloodstalker, because come on, this is one of those creatures where it is so nice to have as an underwater mount. You may have not discovered this from your perspective, but just from my perspective, generally I always love this thing as an underwater mount, and I will settle for nothing less when it comes to underwater tames. Yes, the Megalodon, the Mose if it had a little bit of TLC, and the Ichthyosaurus are great underwater mounts and you can use them, but this does everything that they do for me apart from the damage aspect, but it still can pack a fair punch. Just you wouldn't be doing the motor with it, but most of the times I'm not doing the motor, which is pretty much actually all the time. I barely even do that boss fight, and yeah, it's largely insignificant to be honest. And for everything else, this does everything I need it to. It is fast, agile, you can see the aggros of all of the creatures as well, and you can skate on the top of the water too. It is just a marvel of design in my opinion, and I love how it's integrated. It's not just also a great underwater mount, it's obviously a great general travel mount, and I really do adore it for all of its traveling abilities. It just can go really insanely fast, and you can just get a lot done with a creature like this. It is just so worth having, and if you haven't got a Bloodstalker already and you have access to tame one, you might as well already. You are wasting your time with not getting one of these things. The Desmodus is one of those creatures where you really can't forget that it is one of the most brilliant Ark tames coming out on Fielder, so a very recent one. Again, it's done on ASA, but I don't care about that. Again, I'm not going to digress on the meme too much though. I've said that 3 times in this video, so I'm not going to say it again. Talking about the Desmodus, they obviously have the Sanguine Elixir, which is an absolute cheat for tames. 30% of it done like that. All you have to do, chuck it in the inventory, press E or whatever button you want to use, depending on what device you're on. Then yeah, there you go, 30% of the tame done like that. And obviously they're Bloodbag farms, and I love my Bloodstalkers. It was literally the previous creature on the list, so you bet I'm going to love this creature for all the Bloodbag gathering, not only so I can tame more Desmoduses, because it's the exact same taming method, but also so I can tame more Bloodstalkers. They are very nice flyers as well. That gliding ability is well sought after. It's nice and snarl too, but I find it's even better in the Desmodus, and they can go invisible at night too. But I think I chose the wrong one for this, because it's one of the only that does not have a day and night cycle. In number 3, we've got the Baryonyx. This is always the king for me when it comes to any kind of caving mount, and there is no competition whatsoever. Nothing is going to change my absolute love for the Baryonyx as a brilliant Ark tame. It is fast, it is speedy, it is capable of so much as a tame, and it is a great caving mount, which is its main ability really. This thing is just the perfect size to fit into any cave, apart from the Affecting Skylords, but you struggle even probably bringing a dung beetle in there. But you know, that's besides the point really. For everything else, you're going to love this creature. You're not going to need to cry in between phases, and it has got a very nice health stat, and on top of that, great health, great stamina, and great mobility too. And that's something which is really needed in a cave environment. You want to be able to get out of some situations, because yes, you're going to be killing a lot of those pesky bugs down there. But you're also going to be doing quite a lot of just avoiding things in general. You're not going to be killing everything that comes full force blazing in front of you. You are going to be doing quite a bit of just running away too, because you know, it's more practical to do it that way, at least from my point of view, and it's great at doing that. It's also great for the underwater caves with that stun spin attack that can stun creatures up to the size of Megalodon. In number 2, we've got the Maewing. This is the best just travel mount out there, and I love what this stands for as a creature. It is so versatile, it is so agile, it is so easy to tame, and sort of a little bit game changing really, and all the best players are really using this thing for travel because they realize just how good it is. And I know I don't demonstrate it the best in this B-roll, especially to the environment that I'm in, but in very flat environments too, you can pick up a lot of speed and traverse the landscape with absolute ease. Yes, the rock drake can sort of do the same, but it kind of struggles a little bit more, and I'm not sure with the reasons behind it, but the Maewing is simply a better glider. The Saddle was also unlocked at level 18 too, so there's no complaining with levels, but you probably want to be level 21 because if you get some Trankos, once you have a couple of signs, you can easily knock out one of the extremely high level ones, being whatever the highest level is on your server or world. And from that, you can just get yourself the best Maewing right off the bat. You don't need to go for low levels first. Honestly, just prepare and get a really good one. Trap it simply with those signs and trank it and you'll be fine. They also act as a portable feeding trough and glide on the top of the water. They're pretty good swimmers and they can gather berries too. And finally, in at number 1, I've decided to put the Deinonychus because, come on, this creature is one of those where you really do have to celebrate it for its brilliance, at least in my opinion. This is one of those tames where they're ridiculously easy. You simply steal their eggs from the nest, use a grappling hook or some kind of flyer to get away. You don't even need that really, you can just kamikaze yourself and pick up your body at a later date. You still get out fine and then just use some torches and raise this thing, just feed it a little bit of meat, and as long as you're not playing on an official server, it's not going to take too long. At 2.5x, it shouldn't take more than maybe an hour or two to get one of these things fully raised, and you only need to do that twice, especially if you know you're going to be breeding these things, because that's going to be extremely useful to you for boss fights and just building a pack of these things. I wouldn't just recommend, you know, always raising them straight from scratch, where you're going to have to anyway when you're breeding, but you know what I mean. It's not going to be as much effort to get through everything. You just simply have to wait for that egg to incubate, but the egg is going to be much more easily obtained. These things have it can deal bleed damage to bosses as well, like you've seen it there on that Bronto. They can do the same thing to a boss, which is just insane, ripping them to shreds, stealing that bleed ability. They take no fall damage on top of this as well, and they can scale any kind of wall or vertical surface to have the pack buff, which is just lovely to have, especially in a boss fighting scenario, because you're going to be doing insane damage on top of that, and they really just are the most brilliant Ark Teams. I could bang on about them for ages, but I'll stop. Let's just get into what's the most enjoyable Ark Teams out there. In at number 10, I simply had to put the Velonosaur. I really do love this as an Ark creature, and sort of just as a general concept. It really does work well with its spine attack abilities just being one of the most enjoyable in my opinion. And it's sort of sad that Wildcard never really revisited this creature and sort of added something similar to it, but it also is technically a good thing too. It stands by its own, and with the R Velonosaurs on Genesis Part 2, you've got some even better ones out there if you wish to have the upgraded version, but both still offer a lot of versatility in the combat scene. Of course, you wouldn't use them that close to a theory, but you know, it's just for proof of concept in the B-roll. And their stamina also goes on for absolutely ages. You're going to have no problems with stamina drain on a creature like this. They truly are one of the most enjoyable in my opinion. Next up, I've decided to put the Rhino Ganatha, and although not a big favourite of mine, just for other reasons, which I won't get into today because I still really like the creature and it's not really valid in my opinion, but my brain is my brain. This creature just can do an incredible amount, and that ability to pick up just such large creatures still always is fascinating and enjoyable to me. Like picking up Rexes and Paraceratheriums and things like that, that just seems really insane to me, and it excites me every time I see one of these things do that, or just generally when I do it, because you always think of carrying creatures like that in a cryopod or soul traps, because who really uses cryopods unless you're playing on official or on console? Just use soul traps. They're just far better. They are a little bit rare sometimes, I find, to actually tame, and the tame method is pretty enjoyable too, as long as you get it right. It's exactly the same as the Reaper tame method, except to just impregnate a dino instead of your own self, and you're also going to need a bunch of resources, which will appear on screen at some point, rather than the XP. So the tame method, in my opinion, isn't quite as enjoyable as the Reaper, but that creature's later on the list, and I think we'll talk about this thing a little bit later, but still a very enjoyable creature to ride around on, deal damage with, and pick up insanely large creatures with. Next up, I've decided to put the gas bags on the list, as the idea of the gas bags still just really excites me as an Ark player, and it's sort of comedically funny in the way it moves. It's just basically passing gas as it moves through the sky, because it doesn't actually fly in the sense of using its wings. It simply uses its air, which it fills up through its mouth. So, you know, it's a funny concept from Wildcard, and I really enjoy it. And once you get round controlling one, it can be a very fun experience to have around friends. And even if you're not great at flying one like I was in the B-roll, I should really update this at some point, you can still have a heck of a time as well, as long as you don't end up losing everything and getting things killed, because there obviously is a probability to some extent, which, you know, you always got to be careful out there. Ark is Ark at the end of the day, and it will throw you under the bus quite a lot. This is a really great traveller of heavy things, though. It has a great amount of weight, and it flies at quite a decent speed. It doesn't even need a saddle. The saddle's only there if you want to bring a mate along with you, which is why I said it's quite good if you've got a friend too. Just really adds to the enjoyable level of this creature, but also just playing games with your friends is generally more enjoyable than just playing it by yourself. In at number 7, we've got the Baryonyx, and I simply have to put this creature here, at least in my opinion, because of the huge experience that I've had with a creature like this. It really does excite me as an Ark tame. It is such an easy one, and yet so useful and versatile to the general Ark player. A lot can be done with a Baryonyx that really can't be done with other creatures, at least within the range of when you're going to be taming this thing. Its saddle's dirt cheap as well. It is an insanely great caving mount, capable of fitting into any sort of cave with absolute ease, apart from the artifacts of Skylord, but basically a dung beetle's not even going to fit in that either. You've got to crouch through bits of that. There's not really a point of bringing creatures into that cave. But when you do bring this into any sort of cave, you're going to demolish all creatures that you can find in the area. You'll have absolutely no issues with that whatsoever. You're going to tower through tons and tons of creatures and just have no issues whatsoever, health wise and damage wise, because they really do pack. They're great at swimming as well. With their spin attack, they can stun creatures like the size of Megalodon. They truly are fantastic tames, really enjoyable to ride on, and just generally really enjoyable creatures. Coming up next, we have got the Desmodus, and for me, is there really anything more fun than just a blood bag farm that can also do 30% of your tames with a click of a button? It is just such an enjoyable creature to have around. The Sanguine Elixir, again, 30% of your tame is done like that with a click of a button, and their blood bag farms. And for a creature later on the list, that is going to be an extremely useful thing for me. Might not be quite for you, but definitely for me. But even if you're thinking of taming more Desmoduses, it's still going to be useful to you. They have the glide ability as well, and they are rapidly fast flies. You're never going to be let down by the speed of these things, at least I'm not in any sense. And they can also grapple onto walls, vertical surfaces, or ceilings, like a Tapejara, which is another quite nice creature, although I think I'm not really too fond on it. The Desmodus is definitely a far better creature in my eye. Spawns on Fjorda, really isn't too difficult to tame. Your first one is obviously going to be the hardest, but then you've got a Bloodbag farm, so it really isn't going to be too difficult for all the others. Just great flyers, great use for PvP, great use for PvE. And at number 5, we have got the Astrodelphis, and I'm also going to put the Tropignatus here as sort of a side note, but I really love both of these creatures as they are just such fast flies. They are so rapid, like genuinely you can get a lot done with the speed of these things. You can traverse maps with absolute ease. You should have no issues whatsoever, especially in just generally getting from A to B really quickly. Even in the damage department too, they excel with all of their lasers or just bomb firing apparatus. And although maybe there's a little bit more gauge on how fast you're going on the Trichognathus, in my opinion the Astrodelphis is just more of the smoother flyer, although its saddle is unlocked a little bit later on, and arguably its tame method's harder, although I've always found it a bit easier in my opinion, because Element is found everywhere on Gen 2, and if you just do it right and take precautions for void worms in the area, you really should have no issues, even getting one of these things quite early on. In the early days of the channel, I also made a guide to taming one of these things. It's an absolutely terrible video, but if you want to check it out, then you can add to about the 20 views that it's got at the moment. It came out over a year ago now. Actually, maybe don't look up, that's an embarrassing time in my channel. In number 4, we have got the Reaper, and this it's just one of those creatures where it's like, can anything really get better than a Xenomorph alien? Obviously, apart from the creature which are in the 1, 2, and 3 spots, at least for me. Yeah, this thing really is up there when it comes into enjoyable Ark tames. It is such a great marathon to tame one of these things with its, some may say, laboriously long method, and also quite difficult one too, but I find it really isn't too bad once you get into it, and if it all goes well for you, which if you prepare enough it should, unless Ark's just being Ark and it absolutely ruins everything for you, then it should be a reasonably enjoyable experience. Simply trap it and get its health below 1000, that being a Reaper Queen of course, and then you need to let it impregnate you, get loads of XP, and then once your Reaper baby is born, try and claim that thing. Some Reaper pheromones will help if that baby's still trying to kill you, because it probably will, to be honest. They're not strictly necessary, at least I'm pretty sure, so I don't think you have to feed them to it early on, but I would keep them there for safe measure. They're not quite the hardest things to get, but it will take a little bit of elbow grease. But then you got yourself a cool Reaper, and it's such a great arc of progression. I love taming these things every single time on AB. Yes, they can be easily obtained on Gen 2, but I don't really see the fun in that because it's really just not difficult in my opinion, and I love the progression. In at number 3, we have got the Maywing, and this is so enjoyable to me as, come on, look at firstly just how good this thing's model is. I love the design of this creature. It's sort of like a flying sky platypus, and it's really captured the hearts of many Ark players ever since its release. But also why it's just so enjoyable is that it's just so fast. It's like honestly insane. This thing travels at such a pace, basically nothing can keep up to it unless it's had insane movement speed levels put into it, which isn't possible on basically all these servers out there, because little have fly speed leveling. I'm also pro fly speed leveling, by the way, if you're wondering. I think Ark should really bring it back. I guess, yeah, it was a little bit game breaking, but maybe set a limit on it for those official servers, like 135% or 150% or something like that, because it really does add a nice dynamic. Yeah, 1000 movement speed Maywings would be absolutely insane, and I've tested them out on some single player servers, and they are so fun to ride on when they're that speed, but also a little bit not, because you just get stuck in everything. That's a portable feeding trough, so it is an enjoyable thing for breeders. They're pretty decent swimmers too, and they can gather berries, but the main reason why they're here is just the Maywings are so good with their speed. It's honestly insane. In number 2, I've decided to put the Bloodstalker, as this is my favourite all-time, just basically general travelling mount out there. While I love the Maywing and it's got loads of great speed on it, for just generally all travel combined, that including underwater travel especially, because I do actually spend quite a lot of time down there. I don't know why I've been doing that as of late, but I'm just really enjoying it, I guess. Just for general travel on the surface as well, they work so effectively, and they are my favourite travel mount at the moment. Not only can you see all the aggros of the creatures, but they are fast in literally any environment, underwater and on land. Maybe not in lava, but I don't think any creature is, apart from the Magmasaur, but that's not on the list because it really isn't one of my favourites out there, at least just generally in my opinion. But I do find these things to be very quick and agile in basically every environment that you're going to face. Again, the underwater environment travel of this creature is just insane, and that is one of the main reasons why I'm putting it here, as yes, a Basilow is immune to all the electric eels and jellyfish, but you can easily skip away from them with a creature like this, and you can see if that aggroed onto you well before they even reach you, which is why these things are just amazing. There's just so much peace of mind put into this creature, and they've really seemingly been so well designed for all of these environments, and I just love them dearly, especially with the Desmodus being bloodback farms. I can tame as many of these things really as I want, but usually I'll just settle for one high level, maybe get another one, and then I've got a breeding pair, and then I'll breed them together, and then just take the baby of that, ride it around, and then if it dies, I'll just breed those 2 Bloodstalkers together again, and boom, I've got another Bloodstalker. But I'll usually keep a couple of babies spare, because you should always keep some spare of your favourite dinos. And coming in at number 1, we've got the Deinonychus. I really can't find anything that is more enjoyable just as a general creature to me like the Deinonychus. It is such a good one for any kind of boss fight. It just deals a heck of a lot of damage, really, and with the bleed ability being inflicted on bosses as well, it is an all gore out fight, and I really do like these creatures for that. It adds just a sort of comicness to these creatures, and that's something which I really enjoy. Just there's blood spewing absolutely everywhere on this Bronto, and soon enough it is very much dead. With the pack buff too, you are buffed like absolute hell, and you've got tons of these things going after you as well, obviously along with you as sort of your pack mates, to help those boss fights go by as quickly as possible. Even for longer ones like the Master Controller, I find they still work well. Yes, a couple of health mutations are probably required, but it's not the hardest thing in the world to get those done, at least from my experience. Yes, on official everything it's still going to be a pain, but I'm working with 2.5x rates here with 5x on breeding, because I don't like to wait quite that long. Because a Giga taking a week on official is something which I really don't want. That's raising time, by the way. They can also scale any kind of wall or vertical surface with absolute ease. The climbing and the sort of parkour that these creatures offer is one which is sort of highly sought after. The Thyla does it very well too, but the Deinonychus is just a better creature overall. The only thing it lacks is that underwater travel, but realistically I'm not going to be using it for that. I'm just using it for everything else. And give it up for our patrons, Ekaterina Puchkova and Karina Thorne, Dominic Maciejewski, sorry about that name, and everyone else that's on this list. All the people I've mentioned are paid members, and if you feel like that's something you want a shout out at the end of the video, go join the Patreon or become a paid YouTube member.